here's what I'm going to ask. And you can all do this right along with me, but I want to do a demo with one person in particular. Think of a memory, not a trauma. Okay. And the reason we don't want to do this with a trauma right now is if you have a trauma, and particularly if you have PTSD with that trauma, it can get triggered very easily, and then you could become unresourceful, and then I wouldn't be able to work with you. So I don't want something that's that troubling, but I want something that really bothered you. And it still bothers you just thinking about it. This could be something that happened when you were 3 years old, or it could be something that happened earlier today. And I'm not going to ask you any questions about who was there or what happened at all. I'm only going to ask you questions about, like, where is the image located in your mind? Okay, so this is totally content free. So if you volunteer to do this with me, here's what I'm going to tell you. If it's not a trauma, it will change permanently in just a few minutes. And you don't have to tell me any details about who was there or what happened. I will not ask any details like that at all. So like all of your answers, as far as everyone's concerned, are going to be completely anonymous. No one's going to know anything about it. You're going to think of a memory that thinking about it still bothers you, and give it a code word so that I can reference the code word. So you can say orange, or you can say volleyball. No one's going to know what it is. And all I'm going to ask you is, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the worst, how much does it bother you right now just thinking about it? Wendy. Okay, great. Thank you, Wendy. And so, Wendy, here's what I want to know. So what's the code word for this memory of yours?
I am going to say bridge.
Bridge. Okay, great. So what I want you to do now is go ahead and make an image of bridge in your mind, this memory in your mind, and really notice it. Notice what you notice about it. Go there in your mind, and I want you to rate it for me on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being the worst, 0 being not at all. How much does it bother you right now just thinking about it?
8.
8. Okay,
I
great.
would say an 8. Yeah.
Now, is there any concern? So in NLP, we call this an ecology check. This is a memory of something that happened some time ago.
Yeah, just a few years ago.
Just a few years
Just
ago.
about
Okay, great.
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Is there any concern if we completely remove the sting from this memory? You'll still have the memory, you'll still have the learning, you'll still have whatever decisions you made out of that. But if we just remove kind of the icky feeling, is there any concern with that?
None at all. That's perfect. That would be great.
Beautiful. Okay, great. So first thing I want to know is this. And folks, for those of you who are watching this, what you might want to watch is Wendy's eyes as we're doing this. Watch where she looks and things like that. You just do what comes natural to you, Wendy. But here's the first question I'm going to ask about bridge. First thing is, if this is a picture in your mind, where is it located? Does it feel like it's right in front of you, off to the left, to the right, up, down? Like, kind of point to it for me.
I think off to the right a bit.
Yeah. So if you just close your eyes and take a look at it, yeah, you're kind of looking up and to the right. So it's off to the right, maybe up a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Next question is about how far away does it feel to you? How far away does it seem to be for you? Like a couple inches, a couple feet, a couple yards?
Just inches.
Distance,
Just
kind of
inches.
inches. Okay, great. Inches. Here's another weird question. Is it color or black and white? So if there's any color, folks, in it at all, if it's like all gray and there's a little bit of red, it's a color. So if it's any color at all, it's a color. Is it color or black and white?
I would say color.
Color. Okay, great. All right. And then is it a movie or still frame? Now, again, if there's any movement at all, it's a movie. If there's
It's a
no
movie.
okay, it's a movie. Okay. Last question I'm going to ask you is, do you see yourself in it, or is it like you're there looking out of your own eyes?
I see myself in it.
Okay, see myself in it. Okay, good. So that means you're a little bit more dissociated. Okay. Difference is, like, imagine, folks, dissociated would be like you see a roller coaster like a half a mile away and you see two people on it. One's Robert, one's you. You see it from a distance. You see the roller coaster go up and down, versus imagine you're on the roller coaster going down the hill, wind in your hair, right? That's associated. This is a little bit more dissociated. Now, in NLP, we work with these things called modalities. So pictures is a modality, or what we see. Sound is a modality, things we hear. Smell could be a modality, taste could be a modality, and what we feel could be a modality. But when we take one of these modalities and we break it up into smaller bits and pieces, it's called a sub-modality. So we're only going to work with one sub-modality here, and that is distance. So what I'd like you to do is take this image. Now open up your eyes for a minute. Okay. See my book here? Notice as I move my book away, it appears to get smaller. It's not actually getting smaller, but that it looks smaller when I move it further away. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. So close your eyes. See that image of bridge in your mind. You said it's just a couple inches, and I want you to push it out 5 feet. Push it out 5 feet, lock it in at 5 feet, and then just check in and notice how it feels now on that scale 0 to 10. And re-rate it for me if you can.
It's so strange. I would say a 5.
A 5. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So crazy.
Now what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and push it out 10 feet and just notice what it's like now.
I would say 3.
3. Okay, great. Now we're going to really get bold. We're going to move it out 25 feet. You'd have to squint to see it. 25 feet.
Okay. I would say maybe a 2 or a 1 now.
Okay.
It's strange. I'm trying to like see it and imagine it's so far away.
Yeah. Let's try this. Let's try 100 feet. You'd almost need a telescope to see it. 100 feet. Put it out 100 feet, lock it in, and then re-rate it for me.
Yeah. Maybe a 1.
Okay.
Maybe a 1 now. Yeah.
Now I want you to put it in a slingshot. And shoot it up into the sun. See it go up into the sun and just burn up into the sun. Which, by the way, is 93 million miles away.
Okay. Yeah. That felt great. It feels great.
So what number would you give it on the scale 0 to 10 now?
I would say 0.
0. Okay, great.
A 0.
Now, just for academic sake, try putting it 50 feet behind you. Just to notice what it's like if it's behind you. 50 feet behind you. How does that feel?
Still a 0.
Still 0. Okay, great.
Still a 0.
Okay, so you can go ahead and open your eyes and shake that off a little bit. Now I'm going to ask you some totally nonsense question. We call this in NLP a state break. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, here's the question I'm going to ask you. What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
I just drew a blank. I would say praline, I think. Yeah.
Praline.
There's a lot of them for me, but I would say praline.
Okay, great. Now, here's what's interesting. Okay, Wendy. So did we change anything about the memory at all other than its location? No, we didn't change who was there. We didn't change what happened. I don't even know. We didn't tell you a different story. The only thing we changed was the location of where the memory lived in your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing I want to point out. We took that same memory bridge and you felt an 8, then a 5, then a 3, then a 2, then a 1, then a 0 about the same memory.
Yeah.
So here's my question, folks, and this is a philosophical question for you to ponder. which one of those feelings then is true? See, the reason this process is called the Submo-Swap. The reason we put it into I developed this process many years ago, but the reason I put it into the free intro course and into the beginning of the NLP is it's a great opener. It's a very easy process. And if you try this on your own and you don't get it to like fully work immediately, we're going to test it in a minute, but for whatever reason you don't get to fully work, it simply means one of two things. One is it could have been a trauma that you're working on and you just need a different process for that. The other one is it could be something that's much more driven by an auditory voice in your head, in which case I do this a little bit differently. But the reason I do this is it's actually a belief change process. It really proves to your nervous system through experience that how we feel about anything is relative. And it's not to diminish the significance of anything that has happened to you or anyone else in their life. It's not to diminish that at all, but it's to let us know that we don't have to carry around, like if I get robbed in an alley in New York at 3 a.m., okay, I don't need to carry around the physical trauma every time I walk by an alley to remember to not go into an alley in New York at 3 a.m. again. I got the learning. I don't need to carry around that suffering that came along with it. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that in NLP, we have the presupposition, I really take it as a belief, that the unconscious will always make the best choice available to it at the time, which means if we give your unconscious a better choice or a better option, it will automatically default to the better option. So let's put it to the test. So Wendy, in a minute, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to think about bridge again, but not make any effort at all. Don't try to put it anywhere. Just, it'll probably move around a little bit in the beginning. So give it about 30 seconds, let it settle down until it eventually slows down and stops moving. And then when it does, at that point, I'd like to know two things. Number one, where is it located now? And then number two, how does it feel on that scale of 0 to 10 now? Okay, without any effort at all. So when you're ready, go ahead and do that. Take the time until it settles in. And then once it does, let us know.
I don't know if this makes sense or not, but to me, it's almost like a lower, like I'm looking down at it instead of just like looking, because before when I would think about it, I felt like I was shooting off to the right, just with the memory in my head. And now it's almost like I'm looking down at it, like further away and down at it, and still a zero, if that makes
Beautiful.
sense at all.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, just a further away and kind of just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
And
Thank
what you'll
you.
find, yeah. So folks, what
Thanks.
you're going to find is that that's a permanent change. That will now permanently stay that way unless there's some ecology concern. And I'll give you an example of one. There was one woman that I worked with who was sent to me by a lawyer for domestic violence. We had done trauma work with her, and her ex was somewhat aggressive, and she had to see this guy like twice a week to swap the kids because he hadn't lost full custody yet. And so we did Submo-Swap on this, and she brought it from like a 10 down to about a 3, but she didn't want to go below a 3. And when we did the ecology check, there was a part of her that was like, hey, if I'm totally calm and cool around this guy, I may lower my guard. I might make myself vulnerable and let him charm me again or something like that. So she wanted to keep it at a 3 subconsciously to kind of keep her on edge a little bit around him to keep herself safe. So if you run into anything like that as you're working with something like this and it doesn't go below, don't get frustrated. It's probably just an ecology concern. Or like I said, we might need a slightly different technique. But what we've just proven to Wendy here is that you can permanently change the way you feel about something in the past without having to change what happened at all, because we can't change our past. So it's really nice to know that we can get to a more resourceful place and leave it that way. And just imagine what would happen if your mind, Wendy, now went back and took all of those memories that weren't useful or those old icky feelings that weren't useful, and it started to automatically do this process with them. Or if you cleaned them up, you might think
That
about how it would reduce
would
a
be
lot of
amazing.
unnecessary suffering from your life. So again, we don't use this with a trauma. We have a different process for that, folks. And a lot of that process is about keeping the client really safe and doing that. But I'm telling you, I've worked with the most severe military and sexual trauma you can imagine. People dying in hand-to-hand combat, people having their partner die in their arms, and I mean, really gnarly stuff. Even I've worked with some professional athletes, one professional football player who had been hit in the head so much, so many concussions, he had traumatic brain injury. What happens is if you get hit in the prefrontal cortex enough, your fuse goes down to like really small. So he was now very wealthy and retired, but he would blow up at his wife and his kids so much he wanted to kill himself when he came to see me. And the trauma process helped him significantly with that, so he was able to manage more. And he still had, some damage there, but we were still able to help him get quite a bit more resourceful than he was before. So there's a lot of really beautiful things that you can do with neurolinguistic programming. I believe that once you learn it, it will change your life. And it is to this day the most life-changing personal growth class or course I've ever taken.